Hi, welcome to Inside the Moms Club, where being a mom is the coolest place to be. Here in the Moms Club, we believe that what embarrasses you now will make a great story later. And let's face it, if you don't laugh sometimes, you're going to cry. Join us in having a good laugh together. I'm Monica Samuels. You are now inside the Moms Club, your private destination for all things mom. Welcome, moms. Welcome to Inside the Moms Club. I'm your host, Monica Samuels, and I am here with my lovely co-host, Julie Orchid. Hello,
Thank
Julie.
you. Hi.
It's so great to see you again after all this time. She ran off on a big European vacation, but she's back.
I needed to go off the grid for a little bit. Sometimes you got to do that.
Yeah, no, you did.
Yeah.
You went to the Olympics. You went everywhere.
Well,
so.
I mean, listen, that was a trip planned for a long time, and it was electric. It was everything that I was hoping it would be, and it was safe, and it was cool. It was really cool to watch people do their dreams.
Well, and you went with your daughters.
I did.
2 daughters.
I did, and we survived. I mean, I'm not going to lie, traveling, with females through Europe who are sharing a small hotel room, it can get a little dicey, every now and then. But we did it, and I think it's going to be a memory. I'm hoping it's imprinted on their brain, and that when they're 30, they'll be like, hey, lady, that was super cool. Thanks a lot. Mm-hmm. So I hope
they
so.
will think that.
Yeah, I think they do.
So do you think, now, our guest today, we're going to have a conversation about working with your kids.
Oh, boy.
Do you ever think you could work with either or both of your daughters in a business?
Well, first, it depends on the business. And as long as they know I was the boss, then I think it wouldn't be a problem.
Well, that could be the tricky part, though.
I know.
You have 2 daughters with very different personalities.
If I'm being very honest, I really don't know the answer to that. Mm-hmm. On some days, like pretty much 80% of the time, yes. I'm not sure they would say the same thing. But listen, we love each other, and I think that it just depends on the business, and I'm so curious to hear what these ladies have to say.
Well, I am too. Look, for example, just to give you an example, if one of your daughters, when you were working with her, and she continually called in sick, based on your current experience, what would you do in that situation? Would you keep her employed? Would you wonder if that was the case?
We would have to have a little human resources chat. Yeah.
So if you were to work together, you'd also have to have an HR person in between you.
That's right.
Okay, well.
That's right. We're always going to have another party in the office. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. This is a really good. Would you work with Chase or Jared?
I think Chase would end up being my boss. I don't know how that would work.
Oh, that's really what I meant to say. There is one child I would actually be working for.
Yeah. But, he's quite talented, so I wouldn't begrudge him if he decided just to take over the whole business. Yeah, I don't see that happening. Now, my husband and my son, my oldest son, do work together, but it's in a larger firm, so there's like 20 people.
Yeah.
And they don't work, my son, in fact, they very clearly try to keep it out of, because of nepotism and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's a larger firm. I love the powerhouse that, you could do with your kids in any type of family business. And so I can't wait to hear the dynamics.
I know. Well, let's get right to it because it's going to be a fun show. Well, we are fortunate to have today a mother-daughter team who are both attorneys. The first, Patricia Miramon, is a graduate of LSU Law School, and she opened her law office in 1988. She specializes in elder law, and she has 3 adult children, one of whom you will meet, Julia Todd, who is a CPA and also an LSU graduate. I'm a UT graduate, so now that we're both in the SEC, I won't comment further on that. She is the mom of 2, a son and daughter, very small children, and as I mentioned, they are both part of the Miramon Law Firm. Welcome, ladies. Welcome to Inside the Moms Club.
Thank you.
So this is such an interesting dynamic in so many ways to have. I mean, a mother and daughter is like, I've observed, because I don't have daughters, but I had sisters, Julie and her daughters. Mm-hmm. And how this works exactly. So let's start from the beginning. Patricia, you are an attorney. And how long you practiced since your children, before they were born, you've been practicing, then you had 3 children?
Yeah, 39 years.
Oh,
yeah,
wow, okay.
Julia is 32.
Were you in a big firm, or did you started your own firm, I guess? How'd you
No, I when I first got out of law school, I went to work for just a one-person law firm, and I was there for about 6 months, and then I kind of jumped ship and went to work for another very small law firm, and I was there for about a year, and I decided for just a number of reasons that I was just going to go ahead and do it myself. So I hung out my shingle and did every kind of work that anybody asked me to do in the legal field, and then eventually over time dropped the things that I didn't really enjoy, and then concentrated in the elder law area for the last many, many years.
Well, I admire you so much for that, because I was never been brave enough to go hang out my own shingle. In fact, my father always joked that anytime he had a legal problem, like with a neighbor that he was bothering him or something, he would say, I would get my daughter to take care of that, but she doesn't specialize in that area, so she can't help me. So I always use that as my excuse, because I was at a big law firm, so I did environmental and immigration law, but we were very, very, very specialized. So anyone that can hang out their shingle and do all of that, my hat's off to you. But you certainly learn 100%. A lot doing that.
Yeah, you just kind of have to take everything and just get to know as many people as possible. But my husband would joke, that the reason that I opened my own office is that I couldn't get along with anybody, which is, not exactly true, but it is different. And like you said, with being a parent, so I practiced law for a number of years before my children were born. But one good thing about working for yourself is that, if I knew that I was going to, the mom's day, or something that was going on at school or whatever, I could go, and I made myself available as much as possible.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of my questions, is like, why'd you go out on your own? And did it have to do with the fact that, you knew you wanted children, you had children, and you could be your own boss?
Right. And I think too, you have to, in the legal world, and everybody who's a lawyer knows this, people practice law in different ways. So the people that I worked for were good people, but I just knew that I wanted to do things a little bit differently. So, for instance, one of the things that I did from the very beginning, which has ended up being a huge thing for us, and I think the reason we get a lot of people, is that we set flat rates for most of what we do. So unlike back then in the 80s, and I think even now, a lot of lawyers would say, well, it'll be X by the hour, and so the client doesn't have an idea as to what it would cost. And I used to say all the time, I don't understand why no one knows what things cost. I mean, why can't we tell them what it cost? And so I started setting flat rates, and that was a huge, that's something that people really, really appreciate, because when people come to see you, they want to know how long is it going to take and how much is it going to cost.
Right.
And if you give them the lawyer answer, which is it depends, they're going to be very anxious and unsure, and you need, they're not going to feel comfortable. And so there's times when we can't do that, or times we have to change it, obviously, but overall, people really appreciate knowing those two things.
Yeah. It is interesting because, I worked at a big law firm, and we did it the other way. We did billed by the hour. And a little helpful hint to all you out there, all you moms out there who might hire an attorney, watch out for, if it's billed by the hour, look at your bill. A lot of times they'll bring in an associate. And we worked for big institutional clients too, so they had deep pockets, and if we missed something, that was the worst thing. If you missed anything, you were done. That was it. But you'll notice on your bill something that's like, review the file. Review the file. A lot of people reviewing your file, for several hours. So yes, it's and they're incentivized to bill a lot of hours. That's how the firms make their money. So, but it's not fair to the client. You get a lot of uncomfortable conversations with people when they don't have any idea. They see their bill and I've seen my bill before and keeled over because I thought that's not right.
So
I just thought it was a crazy scenario. I just didn't, I didn't know any lawyers. So when I got out of law school, I didn't really know any lawyers. I didn't know any lawyers when I went to law school. And so I'm just a normal person saying, well, how much does that cost? And, the lawyers I work with is like, I mean, you don't know yet.
I've always wondered, for myself particularly, is being a lawyer, is that partly a genetic thing? Because I'll give you this. This is why I'm asking. Especially
you're taking my next question. You know that, right? For Julia,
my youngest son was just born to be a lawyer. From the time he was 2-3 years old, you could say something to him, and he could give you the best argument why you were wrong and he was right, and you couldn't really argue with that. Or an injustice would happen in kindergarten, and his first question would be, can we sue that person? And so I don't know if that was because he lived around me and that was just sort of the thing, or if he's just, if it's genetic. All right, well, like, were you always, Patricia, did you know from your time you were a small child and people said, you're a born lawyer, you just have the personality to be a lawyer, or was it something you came into later?
Absolutely not at all. I wanted to be a librarian.
Oh.
When the card catalog was taken out of, you don't use card catalogs anymore, that was a really sad day for me, because I grew up just loving libraries and loving, that was my goal, was to be a librarian. And I got a degree in English literature. I intended to pursue that route and, maybe end up, going further in that. And I had an English professor that said, I really think you ought to take the LSAT, which is the entrance exam for law school. Oh. And I said, I don't know what that is. And so he told me how to do it. And I took it, and then I got an acceptance letter.
Gosh, that is such an awesome story. Wow.
Yeah.
I never, like I said, I didn't know any lawyers. I just didn't, it wasn't something I even considered. But then when, this professor told me, I think you ought to pursue that. I think, you don't, being in the education area has a lot of things. You're going to have to constantly be publishing. You're probably going to be moving from school to school. You're going to, all these things. You're not, so anyway, yes, he really changed the course of my life.
That's a great story. And you might have answered part of my question, because maybe it is genetic, because I too love the library and mourned the end of the Dewey Decimal System. So I think
I'm laughing because there's a large crowd out there that feels the same way as Patricia.
Feel the same way as lawyers. I think that's part of it. So when Julia was born, is she your oldest child?
Yes.
Now, did you see any traits in her like, oh, you should be a lawyer, or was this not a thing?
Julia was like, be nice,
first,
Mom.
And then Julia can share her perspective on it.
I was going to say no. I mean,
my husband is a math person, and all my kids are all my kids were math people. So Julia was a CPA.
Yep.
My other two are engineers. I'm kind of the odd man out in my family, because sometimes I didn't understand what they were talking about when they start talking about velocity and things like that. And she was always a math person, and that was what she really wanted to do. And so it was a natural thing for her to become a CPA. And she can tell you how she came from being a CPA to being a lawyer, but I did not expect her. I expected her to stay in the CPA world.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, then what a delight for you guys to be working together.
So maybe she was inspired by her mother. Well, Julia, so what made you decide to go to law school?
You kind of grow up looking at how your family was, right? Mm-hmm. So I saw a mom who was able to, in my eyes, do it all, work and have a family. And, granted, we had plenty of help. But I graduated from college, and I got married and moved, back here to Shreveport with my husband. And we started talking about having a family. And all I could think about was, I should have gone to law school. I could do what my mom does. She gets to meet with people. We do a lot of estate planning or probate work. So we get to meet with people all day long. And, I had actually drafted my first will when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, because we had just gotten computers at home. And she's like, okay, well, I'll pay you a couple of dollars, or, I don't know what it was. This will be your chore. if you draft these wills. So I was doing, wills and successions, but I didn't know what that was. I mean, I was pretty young.
You should have submitted billable hours to your mother.
Or at least giving her a flat
trying
rate.
to get her to learn how to type. I was
I was-
get like comfortable on the computer. That was
Okay, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No,
So
well,
you were doing this.
Yeah.
Right. My dad was a computer teacher, so it was all about learning how to type and excelling in that area. So, I said I should have gone to law school, and my husband said, why don't you? Well, we can. We're still young, we can do it. And I said, I'm going to get in first. I'm going to make sure I can get into law school before I even have a conversation, with mom, because I'm not going to do this and go. I would never thought I'd be in some kind of big law. It was going to be about being here and making relationships with people.
Yeah.
So I did, and I got in, and I just took the path.
That's incredible.
Now, so you were back in Shreveport when you made this decision, and did you have children at that time?
I did not. So
Okay.
I had my first child really the first year that I was practicing here.
Okay.
So made it through law school first.
But then you have to go back to Baton Rouge to go to law school, right? So how did
Correct.
that work?
It was a wild few years. My husband worked at a bank at the time who was wonderful to him and just transferred him to South Louisiana.
okay.
And we rented our house out here and just truly up and moved for the 3 years. And then when we got done, I moved right back into the same house.
Well, that's a great commitment. What a nice husband.
Yes.
Jeez.
Yes.
I feel like you guys
impressed.
have a movie in the making here,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I was like, there's more out there, and this would be really cool.
It's nice. So working for for your mom, are you both partners now? Or, I mean, how does this work? How did that shake out at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're not equal partners, but Julia is
Okay.
a partner.
See, that's what I'm talking about, Patricia. I'm
Well,
kidding.
Yeah.
part of my question, so you have 2 young children, and when you need to take time, it sounds like you have a very great situation there because your mom made it where she could go be at school for you and things. So when things come up for you where you need to do something for the kids, I'm sure it's easy for you to manage that. And your mother, especially since they're her grandchildren, is she really going to
Yes.
deny them? So how does that
Yeah,
work?
We don't, I will say, I mean, I work a lot or, I don't think that's ever really been an issue with us. I mean, one thing about, even though we're not equal partners from the very beginning, she, and we do succession planning. She has always been about preparing me for my future. And so much of that has been, okay, what things can I let go? So the first thing she doesn't like doing is the business side of things. Well, that's my brain. I
Yeah.
love that part of it. So
All the math stuff.
All the
Okay.
math stuff. That's right.
Right. So all the finances, the pricing, the HR stuff, all of those things have from probably day one, she has either accepted my criticism or critique of them, or she has been on board, with change. I think someone, told me that it was maybe exciting for me to come because, she thought, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to retire, but I've built this business. So what happens to it?
Right.
And so now it's been kind of a little bit of a new excitement, from her end, and she gets to focus on what she likes to do while also being open to some things that maybe my generation is excited about.
Yeah. So, and that makes you a great team. And I can say for me personally, I'm not I hate math, actually. Not good at it. So I would appreciate somebody like you in the office. And also, since you do wills, and since you've been doing wills since you were 7, I hope that if they made you do the will for them, that you made sure you put your little extra in there for yourself, when you were that age. But
No, we can't do that.
Yeah.
no, I know. Especially, yes, I especially
Well, you guys,
am aware of that.
elder law, can you tell me why you picked that? Like, I mean, out of everything that you started out doing, I'm dying to know, and I'll tell you a little bit. This year's been a wild ride. I moved my parents into independent living, and it's been a huge shift and change. And then I moved my aunt there, and she passed away. I became the executor. I feel like I've been kind of, invisibly sitting in your office listening to a lot of things, because I've had to sit in a lot of attorneys' office this year. So can you tell us why that you picked it? What was so special about it? Was there a case that you're like, I can be of service here? What, made your heart explode over this particular area of law?
Well, I think two major things. One, I'm the youngest of 6 kids. My parents were 42 and 46 when they had me. So my dad died when I was 24. Oh, wow. My mother died on my 40th birthday. Oh. So they were already, I was already dealing with my dad's illness, and most of his siblings and my aunts and uncles were very elderly. And then my mother had Alzheimer's, so I dealt with that. But really, I think besides that, the thing that was that made me really do this more as a profession is that my dad was retired military, and so I grew up going. Barksdale Air Force Base is right across the river from us.
Yes.
And so I grew up, going to Barksdale Air Force Base, going to the library at Barksdale Air Force Base, and the swimming pool. And when my father died, I met a person named Colonel Steve DePazler. Oh. And he was the head of the Casualty Affairs Office at Barksdale Air Force Base for many, many, many years. And his philosophy was, everything he did was volunteer. His philosophy was, I will help one person every day that I am alive. Okay? Yeah. Wonderful person. He died at 101 years old.
It's a cool story.
But I met him, and I had done a succession for a friend, and I met him because he called and he said, "This is Colonel Steve DePazler. I will be at your office in 5 minutes." And he hung the phone up. And so if you know about colonels in the military, they just tell you what they're going to do, and
right.
You do it.
And then you
don't ask questions, you do what they say.
Exactly.
So he came over to my office and he said, "I need to know if I trust you, and I am willing to say that you're my lawyer, and my widows, I want someone my widows can trust. I want someone who will not take advantage of my widows. I want someone who will tell my widows a price. I want someone who will tell my widows how long it will take, and to treat them fairly." And I said, "I will." And
it just
then for 30 years, I did a lot of people who were retired military who had ties to Barksdale Air Force Base.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then, once you do it and you do something, people think you do it well, you just get clients on repeat, right? So
Sure.
And that's really why. And that's how I just really got into it, and got into it very heavily from that point forward.
So what all does elder law encompass? Like, a friend of mine does care for senior citizens, for families. She's brought in to be a caretaker. And she's told me nightmarish stories about elder abuse among family members. I mean, it's shocking how people treat their family. And do you get involved in that? And how is that emotionally for you all to be involved? Because I know, like they always said when I was in law school, you don't be in criminal law or family law unless you want to be emotionally, it'll affect you emotionally. So do you all get involved in those types of cases too, or do you mostly do wills and succession and guardianships and things like that?
I'd say some of our guardianships sort of, or interdictions as we call them here in Louisiana, definitely have the mental component that you're talking about to it. We, as far as elder abuse and those types of things go, there are places that you can call for immediate action, and we just can't act fast enough on those types of things. We of course recommend people, contact, specific agencies on those. But you're right. Sometimes it's pretty taxing with family members. We, I think one thing that makes us different is that we're the ones that are talking to the clients every day. And so we're calling them, we're in it with them. But I think that's important. That makes us empathetic. That makes us good at what we do. So the separation, while hard, maybe it's good that it's not there sometimes.
Yeah. I was surprised because she was talking to me about this the other day, and she said it's usually these family members, and she talked about how as their parents get to the end of their life and it's getting harder to take care of them, she said they'll ask me all the time, well, how much longer do you think they have? But it's not in a way that's they're sad about it. It's like they're just, this is taking it's kind of awful.
You're right. There is a lot of abuse, and what we really try to get people to do, if they possibly will, is make some plans. Have a will, have a power of attorney for someone to make your financial decisions, have a power of attorney for someone to make your healthcare decisions, have all those things in place, because if you don't, then you're really at the mercy. All of us are going to get to the point at some point in our lives where we can't take care of ourselves, whether it's physically or mentally or both. And if people would just take a little small step forward and do a little bit of planning.
Yeah.
You don't have to have something super complicated or that's really, really expensive. And, you can have just basic documents that protect yourself, in the case something happens to you and you've got someone in place that you trust. There are still times when someone you trust betrays you, of course, and that's really sad. But most of the ones that we see that are really heart-wrenching are when people have not done any planning themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
and finding that right person that you can trust, because some of the stories that I've seen personally with people that I know, the siblings will then try to take charge of the parent and the parent's like diminishing in what they can do. And then they have them sign something. Oh, I've got a new power of attorney. Then everyone's fighting over, this one has a power of attorney. No, I got a different one. And I even had a friend who was dying of cancer, and she had given her ex-husband medical power of attorney, and he realized that he wasn't going to be in the will, so he had them lift pain medicine from her to try to get her to sign something that would benefit him. I mean, people are pretty awful in those. So you're right. You need a plan, like when you're my age or even younger. Like, how early do you tell people, hey, you need to start thinking about this, and you actually need to put documents in place so that it's very clear to everyone that.
I mean, I think they're going to say early.
Yeah, like maybe I'm too late.
I'm saying 18. So an 18-year-old at least needs a power of attorney, because an 18-year-old, let's say you're successful and you're going off to college and mom and dad want to call and they want to pay your tuition. They're not going to release your financial information without a power of attorney, or they shouldn't
even
be.
To the parent. And
that's right. That is true story.
People who are parents of college students have dealt with this, I'm sure. They won't tell you how much your child owes. And also the other thing is, medical. Your child is 19 years old and gets in a wreck.
Yes,
is in the hospital.
You find out the hard way.
You don't have the power to make their decisions.
Yeah, no, I had my son was in an awful accident, was in a coma for a short period of time. And it was at the end of the semester for college. And the school came to me and said, well, does he want to take an incomplete? I'm like, he's in a coma.
He's in a coma.
So I said, I guess he's going to have to. Well, then later on, this University of Texas tried to say, well, you can't get an extension on that because you voluntarily took an incomplete. So I went in there with him and I said, I'm the one that took the incomplete. He was in a coma. They were lovely about it. They reversed that decision. But you're right. It's better to have something in place. So even though on your shingle it says elder law, you can come to you even at 20 years old and say, or 30 years old with a family and say, hey, I want to have a plan in place.
So yes. I don't mean to I know all of you are lawyers, but I've been through so much this year with this, and I think a lot of our listeners have too. Can you kind of point in the direction, trust, will, trust, how do you explain this to people who don't do this on a regular basis?
Well, this is an hour-long discussion.
Well, I know that, but I'm just saying, for most people, it's just good to have a basic will, is from what I understand. And then you kind of, if you need to, go into, revocable trust.
I'm going to let Julia answer that.
Okay.
That is a question that we get asked all the time.
Well, see, that's why I asked it.
Yeah, so it's a great question.
Yeah,
it's a great
thanks.
question.
You don't have to have a long answer, but just to give people a basic idea, because I think they get overwhelmed. I mean, people like me get overwhelmed when everything like this happens all at once, and then someone dies. And then I had to go to court to, so I'm not going to go on and on, but you get what I'm saying. So,
Sure. The short answer is in Louisiana, it's something totally different than it is where you guys live.
Sure.
And so you need to go to a lawyer who knows this area of law and can tell you what the probate or the succession process looks like.
Sure.
Here, it's not a big deal. We can do a basic will for most people, but in other states, there are reasons to avoid that process. I will say, TikTok, everyone loves to get on there and scroll and receive legal advice through, these fun little channels. But the problem with those is that those lawyers or people that are doing that are actually state specific. We're licensed in each state. So it's important to find somebody that can talk to you about that in your own state.
Yeah, each state is individual, and people need to know, that
true.
Every state is different. Every state has different fees and how this is done. So I just wanted you to say something about it, so people know that this is possible. This is possible to plan. This is possible to take out some of the drama that has happened in all of our lives. I mean, I'm in my 50s, so I'm dealing with. You know what I mean?
Well, and you dealt with it a lot. I appreciate, you back in the old days, you would just, an apprentice with a leather attorney and become a lawyer. Julie's almost there. She's with a lot of lawyers.
Do you need an intern? I think I'm ready.
She's practically ready to take the bar. Well, we are very excited. We have some other ladies that would like to ask you questions. And they are our Zoomer moms and Zoomer daughter this time. Welcome, Zoomer moms. Welcome to the Moms Club. So, ladies, I'm going to go around and you tell us a little bit about yourself. And if you have a question for Patricia and Julia, let's start with Janine. Welcome to the Moms Club.
Hi there, ladies. It's a pleasure to meet you. I am Janine, and I live in Austin, but was raised in Shreveport.
Really?
So that could be a whole other conversation. But it's so excited to meet you, ladies. I have a twofold question, and it would be, how do your styles, your work styles, compare to each other, given the unique circumstances of you being family? And the second is, now I understand that you both went to LSU Law School. Is that was correct?
Yes.
During different generations, attending law school. So Patricia, I guess my question would be directed to you in a way that, how do you see law school compare your daughter's experience, Julia, to what the experience was back in the early 80s going to law school and vice versa?
Well, when I was in law school, it was, I think this, I don't have all the statistics, but this is my understanding from my experience, is that it was easier to get in, but harder to stay in. Mm-hmm. So I remember when I first went to law school, and I was in, we were divided in what's called sections, and each section had like 150 people in it. And the professor came out and said, by the end of this year, there will be less than a third of you left. Mm-hmm. That was on day one. Mm. And it was true. And so it just, people were not invited back or left or didn't make it for whatever reason. And I kind of looking back thought, well, maybe that's why I got an acceptance letter when I just was an English major, but anyway, was my experience. It was everyone trying to just really struggle to stay in and to graduate. And then when Julia got in, I felt like from her, and she can tell you, but I felt like from her perspective, it was the opposite. Maybe it was harder to get in.
Yeah, and one thing too, of course, when you were there were not nearly as many women as when I was there. Yeah. So that was kind of a cool shift to see. She got to come actually maybe my first year of law school and sit in my class with me one day. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I do remember.
So she got to come and actually see what my day looked like. So much of it was oddly similar, I think. And then some was definitely different. I had an experience of going through law school knowing what my job was going to be. Mm-hmm. So there was just zero pressure, which allowed me to do well. And I think that was something that was totally different. for her, she just kind of figured it out along the way. So,
Yeah.
as far as work styles going, I think we definitely have different work styles. Generationally, I'll work from home a great deal. She's here every Saturday. She doesn't work unless she's in her chair for the most part. The way that we deal with staff is probably a little bit different, or maybe yours has changed over the years.
Yeah, that's something that's definitely changed. That could be a whole nother topic, but how what employees expect and dealing with employees is completely different than it was 39 years ago or 40 years ago. And Julia has a handle on that, thankfully, because I'm from the school where, everyone's happy to have a job and they just come in and do their job and that's it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to give them any perks or celebrate or any of those kind of things. And Julia has a good handle on what people now are wanting and expecting in terms of where they're spending a lot of their time of their life. They're spending a lot of time at work and what they're expecting to get from that work. So yeah, I think that's
you know what, I can really, just to add to this conversation. So my son's girlfriend just graduated from law school, UT Law School, where I went. And back when we were in law school, it was more like what Patricia experienced. And what she experienced is, she explained to me, she was in the middle of finals one semester, and she said, yeah, we've got that barista, and then they're going to do massages for us. We're supposed to sign up like, you have massages and a barista? We did not have that at the same law school. So yes, things have changed for sure.
Things have
Jennifer, welcome to the Moms Club. Tell us a little about yourself, and do you have a question?
Hi, so great to meet you both and hear about your practice. Unfortunately, we're all in the thick of having older people in our lives. I live in Austin, Texas. I have 2 children. I have 5 living grandparents. So we're very much in the thick of all this, all different levels of health. So we're really kind of learning the difference between, takes 6 trips to go to Schwab to activate your power of attorney. Like, you can have it, but like actually getting into the bank account is a whole different thing. So, and we dropped our son off at college, who's our last, on the 24th of September. And the very next day, my husband flew to Florida to his father, who just had a stroke. So that is what most people don't realize. I feel, is you go straight from being a parent to your children to taking care of your parents. And I think that's more true of our generation because people are living longer. But I also had a cousin who died at 26, no will, and that was a real mess. So it's funny, like it's like a whole, you can take it as an opportunity, but it's a whole new education you have to get about managing this next phase of life. And, I love that you said 18 is when you really need to start having a game plan for this, because that was very much my experience. So given the way kids are with like using AI and being online and legal Zoom, what's the argument for when your daughter comes to you and says, don't worry about it, Mom, I got an AI that's just going to write me up a will in Texas and we're good?
Would you answer that?
Yeah, every day, the ones that I'm getting from various websites or that people have drawn up themselves are invalid. And so obviously, depending on your state, you just have got to have an attorney review it, because, the worst case scenario is that the document that you planned for and you did a lot of work on does not go into play. I mean, I can't, here in Louisiana, if your document's not valid, nothing on it matters. It just doesn't matter.
It's like you didn't even have one. Is that?
Yes. Right.
Okay. So if you, let's say you're in your 20s, just graduated from college, and you're wanting to go just have a kind of the basic things in place, how much time and energy does that take to kind of get those things in place, if you're going to give someone an estimate?
Oh, I don't think long. I mean, I have plenty of people who specifically like on I say young child, a college age child that you're talking about getting documents. Sometimes people will just send us an email or call us and say, hey, my daughter needs a power of attorney. Is there anything else she might need? Chances are they don't own very much, so or anything, so a will might not be necessary at that point. But we'll take that information over the phone, and then they'll just either come into our office and sign, or we'll provide documents for them to sign in front of a notary somewhere else. 30 minutes. I mean, you could. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn out thing unless you want it to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great to hear, because what I know is that you don't ever want to end up in probate, and you just need to do whatever it takes to not be there. And it's worse in some states than others, but my cousin was in New York, and it was a real mess.
Yeah.
Yes.
You just
And see, the thing is that's completely different for Louisiana, because Louisiana, it's better for you to go through probate in Louisiana because we have what's called non-administered probate, and we have this really fast procedure, and there's perks to it, okay, and we have no inheritance tax, which is very different from other places.
Yeah, which goes to the point of every state has very different.
Every state's different
laws. And it is, yes, and you also do want to make sure it's a valid document, because I think there's a lot of people lately, because of all the AI and LegalZoom and things, I've heard of cases where people will do other types of documents and they think they do them themselves, and they take them to their lawyer and say, is this okay? And it's not okay, and it's hard to explain to them, well, now I really need to charge you a lot to make this right. They think they can be a little cheaper if they do it themselves, but it really doesn't work out.
Well, we review a lot of things, and we have a huge volume of clients and a huge volume of new people coming in. So it's if somebody says, hey, can you take a look at this? They can email it to us or drop it off, and I'll say, hey, it looks fine, or this is really old, or this has this weird language right here. You might want to consider getting it redone, and we can do that. We do that all the time for people.
Well, and I will give you, so for me personally, I'm an attorney, but I always have my attorney just check over and see when I write something, like if I'm missing something, because I haven't practiced in a while. So just to always make sure an attorney looks at it. Well, our last Zoomer is a Zoomer daughter. It was actually a Zoomer niece in this case, my niece. But she's an aspiring lawyer and law student. So let's welcome Emily. Welcome to the Moms Club. And do you have a question?
Yes, hello. My question is just, as she said, I'm currently studying for the LSAT and planning on applying to law school this round. So I was just wondering if you guys had any piece of advice or words of wisdom for me.
For law school itself, when you first, congrats, you're amazing. You're going to do great. But sometimes when you're starting something brand new and you go in on your first day and you look around and you're like, everyone here is incredible. Everyone here is smarter than me. You're very capable of doing it, and then the thing is that it's just school. So granted, you want to do well, but there are tons of different types of law. There are tons of different ways to practice. There are tons of small firm, big firm, certain law where you never see anybody, and mine where I'll see 15 clients a week. Like I love that part. And so I would have never gone to law school if I didn't know that this area or this, way exists. So just try everything, do everything, intern with as many people as you can, and see what you like. And if you don't like it, then move on to the next one, because you'll find a place that works for you.
What do you have an idea what you want, what area you're interested in, or you're just starting?
As of now, I'm thinking about pursuing media law, but that could obviously change. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have any experience in it, but that seems to be what I'm most interested in. So we'll see.
But I think what Julia's saying to you, before you do that, you're going to get a power of attorney today because you're 22. And I hope you picked up on that.
You took good notes about that.
And that you text my daughter as soon as we get out.
Well, and also, there is a difference between big firms and small firms. Like your sister's graduated from law school. You could be in the same big firm with her and never see her except for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I mean, you know, it's like there's a huge difference. So yeah, you want to experience all of it. Well, thank you, ladies. This has just
been incredible.
As we say here on the Moms Club, LAMAZING.
LAMAZING.
We have so enjoyed it. And tell our audience if they are in Louisiana, because you're licensed in Louisiana, unless you have another state you hold a license in.
Are you licensed in other states?
Where they can reach you.
Just Louisiana.
Just Louisiana.
So you can reach us at our website, www.miramonlaw.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram under Miramon Law.
Awesome.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We've really, really enjoyed this.
And I learned a lot again.
You did. I know. Look at all the. She took a million notes.
I was like, yes.
So she's ready to go. This has been great. Well, and we want to thank our sponsors, the Beeman Hotel in Dallas. We love them, love them, love them. And we have some exciting news about the Beeman coming up. We can't talk about it quite yet, but we're very excited about that. And New Calm, which, if you've seen recently, the Surgeon General has said that parenting is hazardous to your health because of stress. New Calm is the way to solve that stress, ladies. And we have a great deal for you. If you put Moms Club in the code at checkout, you will get 15% off every month of your subscription, not just the initial month, but every month. So put Moms Club in the code at checkout. It's New Calm, and for those on listening on the podcast, it's NUCALM.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that. Can you spell that for me? Thank you.
NUCALM.
Yeah.
And you can find us on Instagram and Inside the Moms Club, on TikTok, where you'll never believe I was once an attorney, because I'm once point hopping on a hoppity hop. So that ends my political career, that's for sure. And our website is InsideTheMomsClub.com. Well, it's like always, this has been so quick and fun, like really fun. And you know, who knew that a law episode would be so much fun?
Yes.
Yeah,
it was
remember
great.
Our motto, ladies out there: if you don't laugh sometimes, you are going to cry. So let's laugh, everybody, and we will see you next time inside the Moms Club.